Nobody joins Meridian. Meridian finds you. It finds you in the gap between who you were trained to be and who the world actually needs. It finds you when the legitimate structures have run out of uses for you, when you're too capable for ordinary work and too unsentimental for the institutions that might otherwise claim you. It finds you when you're ready. Even if you don't know you're ready yet, every person in this story started the same way. With a phone call they were always going to answer, with a test they didn't know they were taking, with a yes that felt like the first honest decision they'd made in years. None of them understood what that yes would cost. Not at the beginning. The beginning always feels like arrival, like you finally found the room you were built for. The work is real. The money is real. The structure makes sense in a way that civilian life never quite did. You belong to something serious, and something serious belongs to you. That feeling is not a lie, it's just incomplete because Meridian doesn't take you. It doesn't break you. It doesn't corrupt you in any dramatic, visible way. It simply gives you a series of reasonable choices, each one slightly further from the person you started as, until one day you look back and the distance is so great, you can no longer see the origin point. That's not a story about a system. That's a story about a person. This is that story. Level 1, the hungry. The call comes at 2:47 a.m. You don't recognize the number. You answer anyway because you've been waiting for a call like this your whole life without knowing it. The voice on the other end doesn't introduce itself. It gives you a time, a location, and a single instruction. Come alone. You write nothing down. You already know you'll remember every word. That's how it starts. Not with a ceremony, not with a handshake. With a test you didn't know you were taking. You show up to a warehouse on the edge of an industrial district at 5 in the morning. 12 other people are already there. Nobody talks. You size each other up in the gray light and pretend not to. Most of them look like you. Former military, some private security. Maybe a few who learned their skills in places that don't appear on resumes. Hungry, disciplined, willing. A man in plain clothes walks in and tells you that you have 72 hours. He doesn't explain 72 hours of what. He leaves. You figure it out. Over the next 3 days, you are watched constantly by people you can't identify. You don't sleep more than 2 hours at a stretch. You make decisions under pressure and the wrong ones eliminate you from consideration without warning. Someone just disappears from the group and isn't mentioned again. By the end of it, there are 4 of you left. You're one of them. The man, in plain clothes, returns. He tells you that you've been accepted into a unit called Meridian. He tells you Meridian doesn't exist on paper. He tells you that from this moment forward, your loyalty is to the unit above everything else. Above country, above family, above whatever personal code you walked in with. You say yes. You don't ask what you're agreeing to. You already know. You'll find out. Your first contract pays $3,200 for 4 days of work. You're the bottom of the food chain. Perimeter security on an extraction job in the Eastern Balkans. You don't fire a single shot. You stand in the rain for 30 hours and watch a road. The extraction team goes in and comes out with a man you never see. You get paid. You go home, and you don't tell anyone where you've been. You feel clean. That feeling will not last. Level 2, the qualified. 6 months in, you have a call sign. They don't ask you what you want it to be. It's assigned based on something someone observed about you during an operation. A habit, a reflex, a thing you said under pressure. Yours comes from the way you cleared a stairwell in Bratislava. On your 3rd job. You did it wrong by the textbook and it worked anyway. The call sign sticks. Now when you walk into a briefing, people know your name before you sit down. That's not fame. That's a file. It means someone has been watching you work and made a judgment. At level 2, being known means you're useful. That's all. You're making $8,000 to $14,000 per contract now. The contracts are more specific. A surveillance package in Tbilisi. A close protection assignment for a minerals executive operating in a country with no functioning government. An equipment transfer that you don't ask questions about because the contract explicitly states you are logistics, not ethics. You rationalize this cleanly. You don't make decisions at this level. You execute. Someone above you has already assessed. The morality of the situation and your job is the work. The physical, technical, precise work. You're good at the work. Being good at it feels like a kind of righteousness. Your team leader is a man named Voss. He's been with Meridian for 11 years. He doesn't explain things twice. He doesn't raise his voice. When something goes wrong, he identifies the cause, corrects it, and moves on without assigning blame unless the same mistake happens twice. If it happens twice, the person responsible is quietly reassigned to contracts that don't require trust. You study Voss the way you'd study a manual. On a job in Abuja, you make your first real decision under fire. The objective is a hard drive from a corporate office. Simple. In and out. Except there's a night guard who wasn't in the intel package, and he's seen your face, and Voss isn't on comms for 40 seconds. 40 seconds is a long time. You make a call. You don't hurt the guard. You improvise a different exit and you're out of the building before Voss responds to your signal. When you debrief, Voss listens to your reasoning without expression. Then he nods once. Next time, he says, you'll know what to do faster. That nod is worth more to you than the $11,000 in your account the next morning. That should concern you. It doesn't yet. Level 3. The proven. You stop counting jobs. At some point, the individual contracts blur into a single continuous operation. You've been to 23 countries in 2 years. You don't take photos. You don't keep journals. You have a cover identity with 3 layers of documentation and a convincing professional history in private risk consulting. The cover feels more stable than your real name. You get selected for Meridian's Tier 2 teams, the units that run complex multi-phase operations. Longer duration, higher stakes, more variables. The pay structure changes. You're now on retainer. $22,000 a month, regardless of active contracts, with bonuses on delivery. The retainer means Meridian owns more of your time. You agreed to this before you understood what it meant. You understand now. Your personal life has compressed to almost nothing. You have an apartment in Vienna that you sleep in perhaps 60 nights a year. You have contacts, not friends. You have protocols, not relationships. When your sister asks why you can't make Christmas dinner, you give her the same answer you've given for 3 years. Work. She's stopped asking for specifics. You've stopped feeling guilty about that. On a 3-week operation in the South China Sea corridor, you spend 12 days on a cargo vessel with a 6-person team running surveillance on a competing logistics network. You eat terrible food, you sleep in 4-hour windows, and you document the movement patterns of people you will never meet. At the end of the operation, someone uses your documentation to disrupt a supply chain worth approximately $340 million. You never see the disruption. You just know it happened because Voss tells you the job closed clean. You find you don't need more information than that. That's the shift. You used to want to understand the full picture. Now the full picture feels like extra weight. You've learned to carry only what you need. It's efficient. It's also a form of willful blindness that you've rebranded as professionalism. It works. Level 4. The operator. Voss recommends you for a team lead position. You don't apply. You don't interview. One day you're a team member, and the next day you have 4 people looking to you to tell them how to move. The transition is immediate and without ceremony. Meridian doesn't celebrate milestones. It measures outcomes. Your first operation as lead is a protection contract for an energy executive during a contested acquisition in Lagos. High-pressure environment, 4-day window, credible threat from a local political faction that doesn't want the deal to close. You run your team the way Voss ran his. No wasted words, clear roles, contingency for every scenario you can model. The deal closes. Nobody gets hurt. You extract clean. The executive shakes your hand and says something about professionalism. You nod and forget his name before you're out of the building. You're making decisions now. Real ones. Not just tactical adjustments. Decisions about people, about risk allocation, about how much truth to put in your reports when the truth is complicated. On a contract in Minsk, one of your team members, a former German special forces operator named Bauer, takes an action during an extraction that goes beyond your brief. He immobilizes a threat with a level of force that was not authorized. The threat is alive. The extraction succeeds. Nothing appears in any report. You write the debrief. You describe the action as a controlled defensive response within mission. Parameters. You don't lose sleep over this. That's what you notice, not what you did, but the absence of consequence inside yourself. A year earlier, you would have felt something. Now you just file it as a variable that was managed. You've learned to measure outcomes the way Meridian measures them, by what closed clean. You're a very good operator. You're also becoming someone you'd have been suspicious of 3 years ago. Level 5. The architect. You stop running contracts in the field. This isn't a demotion, it's an elevation. Meridian's upper structure has identified you as someone who thinks in systems, and systems thinkers are more valuable behind the planning table than in front of a building at 3 in the morning. You now design operations. You build the intelligence frameworks, identify the personnel requirements, write the risk matrices, coordinate with Meridian's network of informants and fixers across 4 continents. You are the reason a 6-person team in Nairobi knows exactly which floor to be on at exactly which time. You're invisible to the operation, but the operation runs because of you. The money reflects this. Your annual compensation is over $400,000. It doesn't arrive in one place or under one name. You have a financial architecture that spans 3 jurisdictions. You did not build it yourself. Meridian built it for you, which means Meridian holds the keys. You understand this is not an accident. At this level, Meridian's real structure becomes visible to you. The unit isn't just a mercenary outfit. It's a service layer for a network of clients, governments, corporations, private interests, who need things done that cannot be officially sanctioned. Meridian's value is in its discretion and its results. Its product is clean outcomes in situations where conventional actors would leave fingerprints. You know the names of 7 clients. You know the nature of 41 completed operations. This knowledge is not given to you as trust. It's given to you as leverage, because now you have as much reason to protect Meridian's secrets as Meridian has to protect yours. This is how the upper levels work. The loyalty isn't ideological, it's architectural. Everyone at this height is holding information that would destroy them if it surfaced. That mutual destruction becomes the foundation of trust. You find this perfectly logical. Level 6. The strategist. There are 11 people in Meridian's Senior Operational Council. You are now one of them. The council meets 4 times a year in rotating locations. The meetings are not recorded. The decisions made in those rooms determine which contracts Meridian accepts, which clients it cuts, which operators get elevated, and which problems get resolved quietly. You are one of 11 people who shape what an organization of 200+ operatives does across 6 continents. You've been waiting for this without knowing you were waiting. The power at this level is not physical, it's informational and relational. You know which governments use Meridian as an off-book enforcement arm. You know which corporate acquisitions were cleared by Meridian-facilitated intelligence operations. You know which political figures owe their current positions in part to work that your unit did and that history will never record. This knowledge changes how you see every public event. At a council meeting in Zurich, a decision comes to the table about a contract that requires the permanent removal of a mid-level government official in a Southeast Asian country. The official has become an obstacle to a client operation. A $2.8 billion infrastructure contract that 3 different state actors are quietly contesting. The vote is 7-4 in favor of accepting the contract. You are one of the 4. You tell yourself this is because of operational risk, not ethics. The exposure profile is too high, the client is too visible. The blowback potential is significant. This is true. It's also not the whole truth. You don't examine the rest of the truth. You've gotten very good at not examining things. The contract goes to a different unit. The official is removed 3 months later in what is reported internationally as a traffic accident. You read the news report in your apartment in Vienna. You pour a drink. You think about something else. Level 7. The ghost. You no longer exist in any Meridian documentation. Your name has been removed from the operational hierarchy. On paper, you're a risk management consultant with a legitimate firm in Liechtenstein. This firm is real. It has clients, revenue, and staff who have no idea what the firm actually is. Your presence there is part of a cover architecture that Meridian maintains for its most senior figures. You are one of 3 people who sit above the council. You don't run operations. You don't attend briefings. You are a resource, a repository of institutional knowledge, client relationships, and strategic capability that Meridian accesses when the situation is unusual enough to require your specific kind of thinking. This happens perhaps 8 times a year. In between, you exist in a kind of suspended state. You travel, you read, you maintain the appearances of a normal life with extraordinary discretion. You have learned to be invisible at a very high altitude, present in rooms without registering, known by people who would deny knowing you, influential over decisions that are never traced back to you. The isolation is total. You have no one to talk to about your actual life, not because you're prevented from it. You could speak. You simply have nothing to say that the other person could hold without being endangered or changed by it. You've become information hazardous. People who get close to you absorb fragments of a world they can't process. You've watched it happen, twice. Both times ended badly, so you keep the appropriate distance. You tell yourself this is a choice. It is. It's also the only option that makes sense at this altitude. You stopped missing things a long time ago. You're not sure when exactly that happened. It happened gradually, the way identity erosion always does. Not in one dramatic moment, but in 100 small accommodations until you look up one day and the person you were is simply not present anymore. You don't grieve this. That's the thing about this level. You've optimized yourself so completely that even loss doesn't register the way it should. Level 8, the foundation. You are not a person anymore. You are in a position. There are 2 others like you in Meridian's true upper tier. The founder's layer. The original architects of the network. One of them you've met 3 times, in 12 years. The other, you know only through intermediaries. This is by design. Compartmentalization at this level is absolute. If any one of the 3 of you were extracted and fully debriefed, you could not fully expose the other 2. You didn't build this system, but you are now part of its load-bearing structure. Meridian has evolved across 31 years from a post-Cold War private unit into something that functions more like critical infrastructure for a parallel layer of global operations. It has cleaned political transitions in 4 countries. It has secured resource extraction operations on 3 continents. It has, on 7 occasions, prevented actions that, by any reasonable analysis, would have resulted in significant armed conflict. You know this because you were involved in the reasoning. You think about this sometimes, about the specific question of whether preventing 7 regional conflicts justifies the other things. It's not a clean calculation. You know that. You've known that for years. The ledger doesn't balance neatly. What you've discovered at this altitude is that the ledger never balanced neatly for anyone who made decisions at scale. Every system this size has a cost structure that would be indefensible in public and arguably necessary in function. You've made your peace with this the only way you could, by accepting that the alternative to your judgment in these situations was someone else's judgment, and you have very little confidence in that alternative. This is either wisdom or the most sophisticated rationalization you've ever constructed. Possibly both. You sit in a house on the coast of Slovenia. The house is clean and quiet. You're 61 years old. You're in good health. You have more money than you can trace across all the structures holding it. You have the capacity, with a single authenticated communication, to initiate operations that would affect the lives of thousands of people who will never know your name. You almost never use this capacity anymore. You mostly read. You mostly watch the water. There are days when you think about the warehouse at 5 in the morning. The gray light. The 12 other people who stood there hungry and willing. You wonder where they went. Some of them you know. Most of you don't. You think about the call at 2:47 a.m. You think about how easy it was to say yes. Somewhere right now there is a phone ringing. A hungry one picks up. Former military, maybe. Good instincts. Willing to work without asking too many questions. The voice on the other end doesn't introduce itself. It gives a time, a location, a single instruction. He writes nothing down. He thinks he understands what he's walking into. He thinks this is the beginning of something he controls. He'll say yes before the call ends. He always does.